Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I have an interview with a guest that you would least expect me to have here on the show. A dude that I don't believe skis or snowboards. I'm talking about legendary rapper Dane. I was a big Dane fan in my childhood, and a few months ago, my cousin Lisa, who I love and I think is great, but I don't talk to that much, texted me out of the blue and says, "Michael, would you like to join a Zoom call with her, some of her friends, and Dane?" I was like, how the hell does my orthodontist cousin Lisa know Dane? And I texted her back and was like, hey, are you talking about the rapper from the 80s? She said yes, and my mind was blown. This ups Lisa's street cred significantly in my book. And boom, an hour later, I was talking to Dane and a bunch of my cousin's friends that I didn't know on a Zoom call. I was on the call for a little bit, and it was cool. But to get the information that I really wanted, I needed a one-on-one chat with Dane, so I asked him to be on the podcast. He said something to the effect of maybe. And I jumped off the call, and over the next couple of months, I kept messaging Dane to see if he would be on a podcast that focuses on ski, snowboard, skate, bike, really a lot of things, everything but rap. Dane said he would do the podcast, but I think he doubted me. He told me he wouldn't be able to do the full hour, but we could commit to 30 minutes. I wanted to tell Dane that if we did 30 minutes, it would be too short, and the podcast would never be released. But when he said he could do 30, I was like, sure, man, we'll do 30 minutes, it'll be great. So going into the podcast, the plan was to interview Dane until he stopped me or until the interview was over. The conversation went for over an hour, and we ended up having a great chat that takes us through a little of his experience growing up in the projects with a single mother and how he went from Dana McLeese from the Fort Greene Projects to Dane with fame. Before we get into it, I have to let you know that I should be 33-1 in my drinking challenges that I run every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 5 p.m. Seattle time. Every time I win, my competitor makes a donation of their choice to the High Fives Foundation, and if I lose, I send the winner something of their choice from Stanley. It's fun, and if you want to drink for a cause, hit me up on Instagram at The Powell Movement, and I'll get you in the schedule. I also want to ask you to subscribe to the podcast and support my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Stanley and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk to Dane. Dane.
Mr. Mike Powell, how you doing, good sir?
Very well, yourself?
I am grand, thank you. I am grand.
You got big plans for Father's Day?
Yes, to stay alive, just like yesterday.
All right, man, that's a good plan.
How about you? Do you have kids?
I have one, he's 10, and I think we're going paddleboarding. I'm not really sure what the plan is yet. It all depends. We're in Seattle, so our weather sucks.
Oh, okay. Well, happy Father's Day to you, good sir. Bless and love to you, all right?
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you, too.
I appreciate it.
And I think we start the podcast with your latest business venture, and it's Fanta Cake. And when I saw you put something out about Fanta Cake the other day, I was like, oh man, Dane is selling out to make some money off coronavirus. And then I did a little research, and the backstory on Fanta Cake is amazing. Like, you love cake, but anytime you go to a party, you can't eat it because people blow all over it. Is that kind of how the idea came up?
Yeah, I'm not really a germaphobe, Mike, but, it's just one of those things. I don't like blowing on cake, and when I see other people blowing on cake, it just made me think, no cake for me. I love eating cake, but I just don't eat cake at birthday parties because somebody has to blow on the candles, So if I get there too late to the party, if I don't see how they put the candles out, no cake for me. If I see them blow out the cake candles, no cake for me.
And when did you first come up with the idea? Because it's not something that just came up with coronavirus. It's like you haven't been eating cake at birthday parties forever.
Yeah, so it came up in like the mid-2000s. I want to say about 2005-ish, somewhere around there. And I don't really recall what was the catalyst towards me coming up with the idea, but I know I told my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I don't know who your listeners are, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but she always used to tell me when I come in with these ideas, the first thing she says to me, have you been smoking? Because she says every time I'm smoking, I come up with these great inventions that are not going to get done, Because I got about 4 more inventions, too, to tell you the truth, though, Mike, right? So
I'm glad it's not just me who's like that. It's you, too.
Yeah, so look, one of my inventions that I had back in the day, and she thought I was crazy, was a portable hair dryer that ran off batteries. And I tried to bring it to life. It never happened. Somebody probably did it already, but I couldn't do it. And the other thing that I had was a remote control, like back bike signals for people riding bikes. So if you want to turn left, turn right, you have a vest on, and it turns left and turns right on. And I never did that either. So back to Fanta Cake. So 2005, I came up with this idea. I took it into my wife. She's a little skeptical, like, I don't think nobody's going to use that. And I said, yes, they will. And, I go through this whole big thing, but then I put it to the side. So fast forward to 2018, something clicks in me again, and I'm saying, I need to do the Fanta Cake, and it's actually Fanta Cake blower cake. So I was putting all my attention into the blower cake part, the handheld electronic, the little fans that they carry if you go around to Disney.
Yeah, when you're hot and you just like...
Yeah, exactly. So I got one of those, and I was retrofitting that with the little soft propellers that don't hurt you when they spin, but they still work. So long story short, I call an attorney. I'm asking them, can I patent this and this, that, and the third? And they give me the runaround. And so I get discouraged and I put it to the side again. So now, fast forward again to 2020, I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm working on a book because I'm writing a book as well right now. Greatness is Regular. That's the name of the book. So I started writing this book. I'm in the room. My wife comes in. It's about March. The coronavirus has been going on for 10 days, 2 weeks maybe now. And we're on a home quarantine. And she comes in and she pushes her phone into my face. Like, look at this. So she shows me some guy on his screen. You can see that he's doing a virtual birthday party. And people are singing happy birthday to him. And he got a cake in front of him. And right after he gets finished singing happy birthday, it's time for him to blow out the cake. He reaches behind his seat because he's sitting at the kitchen table, and he pulls out a hairdryer and blows out the cake candles. And I said, no. I jumped up. I went to the front, got on my computer, and looked for all my drafts of Fanta Cake. And I said that I am pushing Fanta Cake out this year. Nothing's going to stop me. And that's how I brought it to life. I recreated design. I showed it to my wife. She said, no, you need to make it smaller. You need to do this. And so I retrofitted it and started working on the fan. And now it's out, man. I'm excited that I was able to turn this thing around. And it wasn't March, excuse me, it was April. And I was able to turn it around in about 30 days and get this thing launched and out in the world. So I'm excited. I'm excited, man.
Well, your idea was crazy in 2005, but it's like destiny right now. It's the perfect time for something like that.
Yeah. And you got to understand about things like this. Just like you probably doing your podcast, some people are probably say, that's a great idea. And then some other people say, why are you doing a podcast? That's not what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't listen to the naysayers. You just got to go and do what's in your heart and what's in your mind and what's in your spirit. So if anybody's listening to this, whatever the idea is, do it. Because the thing of it is, you got to get it done. You've got to at least try to take it as far as you can, or you're going to have regrets. And I have enough of those with some inventions that I can't even remember because I put it into the back of my head that I didn't do, that some people came out with and I'm upset with. So when I saw this, I said, this can't happen again. It can't happen again, Mike. I got to put out this Fanta Cake.
People can check it out at fantacake.com. It's pretty cool. I'm sure when the licensing comes in is really when you're going to start rolling in it. But it's a pretty cool idea, and it's funny that you couldn't eat cake for a long time until your invention really comes to life. And now, hopefully, one day everybody will be using it and you can eat everybody's cake. But the world's a crazy place right now. Germs on cakes, people getting sick. So many different things going on, Dane. But things have really gotten out of control lately when we talk about race in this country. I gave my opinion on the podcast a few weeks ago, but my summary was kind of like, I will never know the impact of systematic racism on your daily life. But I can imagine that if you and I were to walk in a store, people are going to watch you more than me. If we get pulled over, it's going to be a totally different ordeal for you than me. And there are just so many instances where your life has had a different experience than my life because of the color of our skin. And is there a single experience, or I'm sure there's so many experiences, but is there one that just stands out as the most ridiculous that you've ever had to deal with?
Man, like you said, I got so many, man. But I'm going to tell you my most ridiculous one. It's 1989, 89, because I just got my car. I got a Chevy Blazer, so I'm hanging out with two homegirls of mine. I'm in Jersey, somewhere in Jersey, because I live in New York, but I'm somewhere in Jersey. I want to say it's about 9 o'clock at night, maybe 10. I think I had a drink or so. We were just having a good time, but it wasn't nothing major. but we were hungry. So we go to White Castles. We walk into White Castles, and if anybody knows anything about White Castles back in the days, it's packed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the lines are always long, and it's always slow to get your burgers. And that's how it used to be. And they were, 25 cents at the time. So we go in there, and they order their burgers, and I order 20 burgers with cheese. It's just me. So the girl gives me an attitude. I said, just 20 burgers, please. So we wait half an hour, maybe even 40 minutes, because it takes a while. So the two girls get their burgers, that I'm with. And I'm like, yo, where's my burgers, lady? She said, I didn't order your burgers. I said, why not? She said, because. I said, look, I was over here fun and having fun, but I ordered my burgers. I want my burgers.
Yeah.
So a cop comes around who's working there because it's not his night shifts. He said, what seems to be the problem? I said, look, I just ordered 20 burgers. The lady ain't giving me my burgers. Why would she do something like that? And I got a little attitude. It's nothing major, though. But I'm like, yo, just give me my burgers.
Yeah, you want to eat.
So the officer says to me, you say one more word, you're going to jail. I said, officer, all I'm trying to do is get burgers. He locked me up. I was in jail for 48 hours.
Jesus. Just for burgers.
Yes. $250 fine. 2 days in jail.
That's just ridiculous. And that would never happen to me. It's just crazy because of skin color. And it's clear that there's still racism throughout our country. And it's places you never thought it was and people you didn't think do it. Now that there's awareness about it, you're actually seeing people come out of the woodworks that you thought were good people that actually aren't. And then there's other people that are coming out that are actually doing a lot of good things. But now that we're talking about it as a society, and I'm sure you've talked about it with friends or family, I know I have as well. But how do we even begin to start fixing things? How do we get it better?
I think it's getting better because of the generations of children. That's why, as you can see, the protesters out there are young people. I didn't say young black people, young people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're you, they're me, they're Hispanic, they're Jewish, they're black, they're Asian, but they're young people. And the young people have lived something different than what we have. Well, at least I have, because I'm 54 now.
Yep.
But, the younger people have been integrated with each other. Their friends are white, their friends are Asian, their friends are black, you know what I mean? Their girlfriends are black, their girlfriends are Asian, their girlfriend, it's all mixed up. So they don't see the same racism that we have grown up with because a lot of it's been taught to us, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just like the policing. It's the way they are taught. They are taught that black men are a danger because that's the way they police us. They come to our hood, they come to our area, and they police us like we are dangerous without knowing who we are. Why are we more dangerous than anybody else? Oh, the problem is because we've been systematically oppressed. So we have more issues with authority than other people. Yes, of course we're going to lash back at people because we walking down the street and you want to stop us and ask us questions. You wouldn't do it to anybody else. So
Yep.
why would we be okay with you walking up on us, asking us questions? We ain't going to answer nobody else. Why would we answer you? Because you have a badge on? You don't own us. But that's how cops act towards black people. Like if they say, what's your name? And we don't give them their name, it's like we don't have a choice. Put your hands behind your back. No, that's not your job. Your job is serve and protect. But when it comes to the black community, they're not trained like that. So it's all training. It's all about programming. We have to reprogram the world for that matter, let alone this country. We have to reprogram our kids to let them know, is there bad people out there? There's bad people in every race. But I don't think that it should be all piled onto one race. Like we are the problem. And a lot of it has to do with what has been done to us. So people are scared that it might happen to them. But we're not built like that. We're built to be better and do better and help people be better.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your perspective. I know you and I aren't going to solve this by any means, and I want to get through your life and times, but a serious issue that everybody needs to think about and do something about. And now we'll go on to your life and times. And you came up in Brooklyn. You were born Dana McLeese, and it sounds like you grew up with a single mom. Was your mom really young? Like your mom and dad had a kid when she was super young and your dad took off?
Yeah, well, so my sister, she's my older sister. She had my sister when she was 18, and then she had me when I was 19. I think my sister was born in North Carolina. Then we moved to New York. But I was born in New York. Not in Brooklyn, though. I was born in Queens, actually.
Yep.
But I quickly moved into Brooklyn. So that's why I always claim Brooklyn, because that's all I know is Brooklyn, for that matter. So, yeah, mom's a single mom, 19 years old. And I couldn't understand why my pops wasn't there. But as you grow up as a black man and you see how hard it is, you can understand why there might be some fear factor for black men to be around, stay around, and handle their responsibilities. It's a little harder, it would seem, back then too, especially. It was 1965 when I was born. So the civil rights movement, all that was going crazy at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's that part of it.
Did you ever see your dad, or is he kind of just someone you never knew?
No, I met him when I was 19-ish. He showed up. I was Dane by the time he showed up.
That's funny how that happens.
Yeah. But, at first I felt the way just because of the way my moms was struggling. But after a while, you can't hold grudges on people. People have their reasons for doing whatever they do. So I learned not to hold a grudge. We never really had a relationship, but we are cool now. We have a relationship, not the father-son relationship, but we do have a relationship.
So is it one of those things where your mom is just working her ass off, doing everything she possibly can to make sure you and your sister have the things you need to just have a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. We moved around a lot when we first got to New York, to a brother's house. Then we lived in a homeless shelter. Then we ended up in Brooklyn on they call it Section 8 now, but it was welfare and subsidized housing. So we did that for a couple of years until she was able to get a diploma and find a city job, which she worked for 30 years,
Damn.
30 some odd years until she retired to take care of us. So yeah, moms did whatever she had to do to make it happen. And that's the thing about black mothers, man. They are the strongest in the world. Not only do they have to deal with not having money and having kids, but most of them don't have the father figure, the man who helped bring the baby in their life. And then not just because the father wasn't around, like my father, whatever his reason was for not being around, but then guess what? Black fathers are getting killed. Guess what? Black fathers are going to jail in a higher number. You know what I mean? So I'm in the projects, and I live in a project building of 13 floors. 13 floors with 7 apartments on each floor. All right. So this is where I live at. And every apartment, the most rooms they have is probably 3 bedrooms for the most part. My point of it is, out of the 13 floors, the 7 apartments on the floor, I can name about only 4 families that have fathers.
Damn. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
You're at an age now where you can look back on your childhood and kind of reflect and look at the lessons you learned. And growing up without a positive male role model, how does that shape you and change you as a kid, where you look back and you're like, man, I didn't have a dad here, and that's kind of why I drifted this way?
I used to think it never affected me, man. I really had in my mind that it never really affected me. But it wasn't true, though. And I found that out when I had my son. Because once I had my son, the first thing I realized, and it's different from a mother, because, a lot of times your mother's around, so she nourishes you. And there's some people who've grown up without their mother, unfortunately. But most children grow up with their mother, so they're there to nourish them. So when a mother has a child, she has kind of an understanding of what it takes to be a mother. She's learning too, don't get me wrong, but she has some type of understanding. My father not being around, I didn't know how to be a father.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. And for years, until the point that when my son turned old enough to understand, I said, son, I'm going to be making a whole bunch of mistakes because I've never had a father. I've never really had a father figure. I don't even know what I'm doing. But I'm going to do the best I can to make you become the man that you should be. And the impact of that is the insecurity, the unknowing, the not having that male figure to run your ideas, your mistakes, or the things that you might want to do, or to guide you in the right direction. So that's how a lot of young black men end up in jail or dead or toting guns or doing drugs or whatever it may be, because they don't have that father figure to tell them, no, that ain't right. Okay, you made that mistake, but let's do this course correction here and get it like that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of young black men as well think that, at least from my point of view, I thought I was the man of the house and I was 6, 7 years old.
Right.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm the man of the house. I got to go out and make money and hustle. And this is my thought growing up, you know what I mean? And I got to fight for my moms and my sister. And then that was just my life. And some gravitate towards becoming the alpha male, and some do other things, with their insecurities. They tote guns. They become bullies,
Yeah.
And then some people just disappear into mental depression and things of that. So I've seen the scale of all of it coming up. So I think that just having a father around would have, I don't know. I don't know. I think my father's a little pessimistic, so I don't know. I don't think he would have helped me.
Now it's time for me to take a sponsor break. And I love Stanley. They have been around for over 100 years, and they have always stood behind their products because they're the best. I'm not just saying that. I use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and they really do keep things hotter and colder for longer than the competition. In my opinion, at least an hour longer. Stanley has supported the show for a while, and I want to keep it that way. So I'm asking for your help. What I want you to do is use my code with Stanley to save 30% on the best products on the market. What you need to do is head on over to stanley-pmi.com and go shopping. They have so many products over there, and hopefully I'll have one of everything at some point in my life. But you need to go shopping over there. You enter the code DRINKFAST, that's all one word, at checkout. You're going to get 30% off your Stanley stuff, and it helps the podcast as well. So thank you very much for that. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon, another brand that I love. And I know I said it about Stanley and I'm saying it about 10 Barrel, and both of those things are true. With 10 Barrel, they support so many different things in ski, snowboard, and bike that when I went to the store before they even sponsored the podcast, I would buy 10 Barrel just because of that. And then when they started sponsoring me, I realized exactly how much they actually do for action sports. They have an A-list team of athletes across ski, snowboard, and bike. They have a big money event series in their Hella Big Air events, and they give back money to the Surfrider Foundation and protect our winners. They do so much, and they have a beer for everyone. I find myself drinking a lot of Profuse Juice, a hazy IPA. Next time you're at the store, I encourage you to pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel and support the beer that supports the active mountain lifestyle more than anyone, the 10 Barrel Brewery. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. You've got all that shit going on in your home life, but then when you look outside of your apartment, you're in the Fort Greene Projects. I think it's like the Walt Whitman building, or I don't know, I was reading up on it, but Fort Greene's what I heard in your rap songs. And it's a famous place. I mean, ODB comes from there, Bernard King comes from there, and yourself. And you mentioned hustling and making money as a young kid. And I would think that without a dad at home, there's a lot of role models per se that might not be the most positive role models that get you into hustling, get you into making money. And what does that look like for a kid like you? You know, when you're 8, 10 years old, how are you bringing in money?
Well, back then it was the hustling was running numbers. So before they had the lottery, they had the number houses. All right. So I used to do it was a one street called Park Avenue where I lived across from, and it was like under an L. So the street ran under the BQE. So that's the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. So we would go under Park Avenue, cross one street, go under the L, then cross another street, and the stores would be on the other side of Park Avenue. So across there, they had 2 number spots over there. So when I was old enough to cross the street, 6, 7 years old, I used to run to the store, buy cigarettes for the people in the building or whatever groceries they want, get a tip, and go to the number spot and put my mother's numbers or whoever's numbers wanted to put it in, and they would tip me 5 cents or 10 cents, or which was a lot of money back there. And I would take that 5 cents or 10 cents and play my own number. And sometimes I would hit a number. So I would, hit the number and say, look, Ma, I made $36 and give the money to my mother. And as I got older, my hustle became more like rolling dice and playing this game called Chug-a-Lug. And Chug-a-Lug is a board where you put the numbers 1 through 6 on a board, and you separate them in 6 boxes. And you take a cup and you take 3 dices and you shake them up. And you tell everybody, Chug-a-Lug, Chug-a-Lug. You can put down a quarter and you can win a buck. So the basic thing is you can win up to 3 times your money. Suppose you put a quarter on the number 1. And I shake up the dice and a 1, 2, 3 come out. Whoever's on 1, 2, 3 gets paid. All right. If I shake the dice out and 3 ones come out, you get triple your money. So I used to be out there, me and my little homeboy Muggy, and we put our little change together. We start with 30 cents. All right. And then we say, Chug-a-Lug, Chug-a-Lug. Put down a quarter, win a buck. And hopefully nobody will put down a quarter and win because we'd be broke after that. But usually we walk away about $10 at the end of the day of doing Chug-a-Lug, and I'll take that little $10 and give it to my moms. So that was my routine. I make money, I give to my mom's buy food or whatever we need, or even take me clothes shopping or whatever it was. But that was my little hustler. I used to be a hustler.
So it sounds like you're doing, 18-year-old stuff when you're 8 years old, hustling, running numbers. But is there any regular childhood stuff like for you? Are there team sports or any extracurricular activities that you're doing, or is it just like city life?
Oh, no, no, no. The great thing about the projects is there's always something to do. Playing kick the can. We played punch ball. We played stick ball. Of course, the blessing was I had a basketball court, a full court right outside of my front window. And if I went out the back door of my project building, there was a court there. So we always had basketball courts that we could play on. The greatest thing about living in the projects was the community at the same time, even though it was falling apart as I was getting older. But as a young person, the families used to come out and play baseball, softball, football, frisbee football, whatever there was. We used to play it as a family together. Coco Livio, Roundup, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of street games, a lot of hood games that we played, not a lot of organized sports, except for basketball, which was just a few people who lived in the area because we didn't have any teams. They created the teams for us to learn. And I was about 10 or 11 when I first started playing organized basketball with this lady named Sandra. And she was just a lady who just wanted to teach us little boys how to play basketball. And that's how I started playing basketball, organized basketball. And I think everybody in the hood kind of played some type of basketball, not football so much because we didn't have any grass.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have any grass. So football wasn't really the thing. Baseball, yeah, but not a lot of black baseball players. So that wasn't our thing. It was mostly basketball for the most part. So, yeah.
Cool. And was there a moment in life where music enters your world? Like, does your mom play a record at some point and you have like a profound, like, this is my shit?
No, not really. Music is just part of our experience. Somebody's always playing music or singing something, And even though we didn't have a lot, we were fortunate to even have a radio. And at one time, we even had a record player. And my moms would have albums of Shaka Khan and the Marvin Gaye's and BT Express and, all these artists. And she would play the music and she would have card games and poker games at the house and spades games. And music and parties was just always a part of the weekend. So I wasn't really a music dude per se. You know what I mean? That wasn't my thing. Early on, I was an artist. When I say artist, not a real artist, they had this TV guide. And in the back of the TV guide, they had a little art contest. I don't know if you ever seen anything, Mike.
I know what you're talking about, where you draw like the bird.
Yeah, the bird, turtle, you know what I mean? A
Yeah.
mouse is like a cartoon mouse or something like that, a turtle.
Yeah, I remember
Or
that.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. So, I used to sit because there wasn't much to do if we weren't outside. It ain't like we had a lot of money to go nowhere. And I couldn't go outside really until my moms came home because I was young. My sister was a 9, I was 8. So we had one key, which my sister had, and we leave out the house in the morning together. My mother locked the door. She walked us as far as she could across the street. She go to catch a bus to the train, and we walked to PS 67 elementary school that was about 2 blocks further away. After that, we get out of school at 3 o'clock, we come back home, and we sit in the house until she gets off of work and gets home after 5. We can't go out, can't do nothing because there's nobody to watch us. So we're basically 8 and 9 years old in the house. It really started earlier than that, but I'm just talking about that time, 8 or 9 year olds, and we're just sitting in the house waiting for her to come. So I got the TV guide, and I'm just sitting there just doodling, trying to do this little turtle or whatever it was. Every day, that was my routine. One day, I told my moms, because stamps were expensive, "Ma, I want to sit off for this contest, I drew it and look," and then she's like, "I don't have money for a stamp," but then she looks at the artwork. She said, "Wow, that's really kind of good." So she takes it, she sends it in. I'm not the art contest winner. It wasn't that good. It was just good enough to impress my moms. But I'm starting to turn 10, going to 11 now. Some years have passed for me doing the same thing, and she had heard about a program called the SAM program. So in Brooklyn, it was science, art, music, and math. And this was these little programs that they were putting into schools. I think it's STEM now. You know how they got science, technology, and what is it?
I don't know. We don't send my kid to it, but yeah. I know what you're saying. It's for the smart
whatever
kids.
That thing is. Yeah. But before it was SAM, science, art, music, and math. So now, mind you, I'm 11 years old. I would have to take 2 buses that's deeper in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn gets worse as you get deeper. You know what I mean? So deeper in Brooklyn into Bed-Stuy. I'm 11 years old, and all my friends are going to a school that's right across the street. I mean, literally, the same place that I used to go and run numbers right next to the stores is the junior high school. And my sister went there, and that school was hectic. And my mom's was like, "You're not going to that school. I sent your sister there, but you're not going there." I ended up going to Macon Junior High School for art. So it was science, art, music, and math, and I was an art student there. From there, my skills became to grow, and that's how I ended up going to music and art high school, because the teacher suggested that my mother take me for an audition at art and design and music and art high school to see if I could pass the audition and get into one of those schools. And I passed art and design and music and art, actually, but I didn't want to go to art and design for some reason. And the music and art, I just liked the way the building looked. It was like a castle on the hill, and I chose to go to music and art, and I went as an art student. So I'm not a music person. Art is my background.
Did you do any street art, graffiti type stuff back in the day too?
Yeah, I did that. I tagged in books. I would never tag in a train. I was scared of my mom's. I used to think she was 6 feet tall. And then I got older and found out she was only 5'3". I was like, "Ma, I was scared of you for a long time. I thought you was a big lady."
But didn't you see Beat Street and want to go do the trains?
I wanted to, but it was even before B Street, because hip hop started making its way around to us in 78, 79 via cassette tapes. You know what I mean? Via the look. And it was the graffiti. So we saw the graffiti, and I was an artist, but I wouldn't draw in the building. So I used to tag in my little black book. That's my beginning in hip hop, was art. Okay. My second phase in hip hop was fashion. When I saw the B-boys with the Pumas and the bandanas tied across their legs, or whatever they was wearing, the Kangos, it just looked real cool to me. And so that was my next thing. And then dancing was my third way into hip hop. So I called myself a pop locker. I thought I was going to be pop locking in the 80s, but it didn't work out. Only the right side of my body really pop locked. The left side could never work. I was right-handed, so I couldn't get the left side to work.
So you end up going to LaGuardia High School, and I think that's like on the Upper West Side, so probably a hassle to get to for you. But that's where you make some friendships that are going to change the course of your entire life. Some of the dudes we've heard of, Omega the Heartbreakers, Slick Rick, Lance Brown was in there, and there's a whole bunch of people in your crew around 1981. Who else is part of it, and how does the Kangol crew go from a bunch of friends to an actual crew making music?
So, yeah, I met Rick the first year of high school. So I got in 1979. I didn't meet him till 80. I met him the second half of the semester, the school year, rather. And I tell this story for Rick, and he always looking at me and amazed me like, I don't remember that at all. So we're in class. Me and Rick used to have a class together. I think it was history. I'm not really sure. And we got a substitute teacher. A regular teacher is gone. So that day, Rick and some of the cooler cats, like myself, were sitting in the back. And I don't know him yet. I've seen him, but I don't know him. And he starts banging on the table. And as he's banging on the table, he starts rapping. He's rapping about playing poker. It's almost like the Kenny Rogers song. You know, like you got to go know when to hold him, know when to fold him. But it's a rap about playing poker. There's cards he threw out and how he won the hand. And I'm saying, that's freaking incredible. Now, hip hop is young now. The Sugar Hill Gang just came out. Of course, cassette tapes are everywhere. You know what I mean? You can hear the Fantastic Five. You can hear the Furious Five. You can hear Treacherous Three. You can hear Busy Bee. You can hear the Crash Crew, the Cold Crush. All these names of underground or beginning artists, Funky Four plus one more. Mm-hmm. They're on cassette tapes. They're not on records yet. 79, that's when everything is changing. Everybody hears hip hop now because of the rappers alike. People are starting to hear it. And just at that time, Curtis Blow drops the Christmas rap too, about that same time. So hip hop is starting to take on its life. So I'm already in, I feel like, because I've been doing art already. I thought I was a B-boy, which was a fail. And then I got a little gear. I always been fly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I was making tailor-made pants when I was in junior high. So now I'm in this school with a mixed crowd now. Music and art is mostly 75, 80% white. The other part is Asian. And then we got a couple of Hispanics and a couple of black people. Not a couple, but a few,
Yep.
a lot. And I'm from the project, so I've never really intermixed with other people. It was black or Spanish. Or when I go with my mother and I see white people, that's the only interaction. Now is actually interacting with white kids on a daily basis. And to me, it was second nature, though. It didn't feel no different to me. That's how my mom's raised me. It felt regular.
Yep.
But anyway, we at the school, he says his rhyme, and from that moment on, I said I was going to be a rapper. So I went home and I started writing my first rap, which would become the second story of Nightmares. So I went home and the first line was, I had a blind date with this girl named Anita. She was the place I was supposed to meet her. So I came back the next day and I said, yo, Rick, check this out. He's like, yo, that's cool, man. Keep it up. So I went back home next day, yo, I had a blind date with Anita to meet her. Now, mind you, I couldn't memorize this. It was only 4 lines. I'm reading it off of paper. Yo, check out this, Rick. I had a blind date. There's a girl named Anita. The fever is the place I was supposed to meet her. So the body was a vicious butt. How do you know it was a marvelous mutt? He like, yo, that's kind of dope, man. You got a good voice. He told me that. That was it. I was in. I was in hip hop right there. I spent the rest of my first year writing that rhyme and finished that rhyme. Somehow or another, by the next year, me and Rick had become very close. And then it was 2 other guys that I used to take the train with back to Brooklyn. It was Omega the Heartbreaker, Wilfred Hilton, and Kulowski, Alfred Sneed. So we used to take the train back to Brooklyn, but all of us, and that was Lance Brown, who used to take the train with Rick uptown. We used to walk down the hill because it was this long hill to get to our school. It was like the castle on the hill. It almost looked like a haunted house. But anyway, we used to always walk down the stairs. And every day we just became closer and closer. I think when we became the Kango Crew, I want to say 1981, we had this day, because in school we had different days. And it was like spaghetti day or whatever day, but this one was called hat and tie day. So you would have to wear a hat and a tie. No matter what you're wearing, you have to wear a hat and a tie. So we decided we were going to wear suit jackets with ties and wear Kangos. And I think that's kind of how the whole Kango Crew thing came together, because us 5 wore Kangos and ties and suit jackets, and Rick was rapping. I wasn't really a rapper per se. I wasn't even writing rap except for that one rap I was working on. But Lance and Rick were writing routines, and then they was doling out little parts to Alfred Sneed, who wasn't really a writer. Omega was a better writer than me at that time, and Lance and Rick were the writers. Kulowski was a singer, and me, I was an artist, and I was the cool one from Brooklyn. I just happened to be in the mix. So they gave me a couple of lines too. But I gravitated to it. And then as the years kept going, we just kept having more routines. And we get there early in the morning. Like if the school started at 8, we're there at 7:30, practicing in the lunchroom, waiting for people to come. So by the time we get there, we've got a full concert in the morning. We got one at lunchtime and then one on our way home. So that's how we kind of developed over the years of becoming the Kango Crew. I can't put my finger on one day that we became the Kango Crew, or how we became, or even how we became the 5 members. I just know that us 5 gravitated to the same type of sound and what we want to do, and telling stories and having routines. And we had dope harmony too, because hip hop was about harmony back in the days. If you remember the Treacherous 3 and the Furious 5 and the Cold Crush, they always did harmonies. That's how it worked. This is the way we harmonize. This is the way we harmonize. So that was what we were doing as well. And we were telling stories, because I don't know where the story thing came from. I think it was more like the Jimmy Spicers. Jimmy Spicer is really the storytellers for us. And that one little rhyme in Sugar Hill Gang about when he went to his friend's house and the chicken tastes like wood.
Yeah.
So that was a story. And I don't know if people remember this, but back in the days in hip hop, almost all rappers had a story about Lois Lane and Superman. I don't know why, but everybody had a story about Lois Lane and Superman. So that was our beginning of storytelling in hip hop.
Yeah, because it seemed like back then there was 2 schools of rap. probably more than two, but there was the storytellers and then there was the bravado guys that were like, I'm better than you. And you definitely were in that storytelling group where you could close your eyes and see what you were telling. But were you guys just playing to your friends at school, or were you guys playing any like club shows? What does it look like back then when you guys, after 3 years of being the Kango crew?
We were just high school famous. That's it. I had never even heard my voice recorded until 1984. No, that's not true. One of our classmates' father had a video camera. I think it was High 8, but they had a video camera, and we did a routine at graduation in 1983, and that was the only time that we had ever recorded anything. Unfortunately, we can't find that tape. I only saw it once, maybe twice. It was an incredible performance with us in our suits for graduation, because it was graduation day. And we were standing on the stairs at the Lincoln Center, and we did this routine. We were doing a harmony, and Rick was kicking a rhyme. And it was like, got ambition past every audition, does this, and everything rhymed with ishin, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we were just doing, la, ah, ah, ah. It was incredible. I wish we had to tape it. I don't even remember the lyrics. I just remember what we did, but that was the only time we recorded. So we never had any exposure to hip hop outside of being at school. But we were high school famous.
And things are changing, I would think, in your neighborhood and pretty much all over the country at that time. It's like 1985, 1986. I remember a song that came out that I kind of have every word memorized for some reason still, but it was called Monster Crack, and crack came into the neighborhood around 86. Did that change everything in your world? Did like you just start seeing zombies and shit when that happened?
Yeah, but it kind of happened before that because drugs were always prevalent in the hood. It was there. But it was just cocaine at the time and heroin. It was really mostly heroin. There was a lot of dope fiends all around. So crack epidemic was crazy, but the dope fiend epidemic was deadly. And people were doing more than they supposed to do to get that dope. And walking across the street became a little harder. Going to the store, having anything of value became a little bit harder. And then when the crack epidemic jumped in, it became worse because not only was the crack taking people down, the money was making people more violent, I guess, because people wanted to protect what they had grown from the drug trade.
The Nino Browns of the world?
Yes, exactly. The Nino Browns of the world. Yes, there was a whole bunch of them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it was only one project. And people were trying to carve out what they said was their turf somehow or another, you know, that no one owned because it was a project and you couldn't sell your drugs in this building or this street or this part of the projects and vice versa. Don't come to the park. And not only are people going to jail and dying or losing their livelihoods from crack, now we got the kids who grew up with each other in the same buildings upstairs from each other or a building connected, gunning for each other because they decided that it's so much money to be made over on this side of the project that you can't come over. And if you do, we're going to kill you. And people started killing each other. That was for me, though. I couldn't get with the drug world, even though I did hustle for a minute. But it was just like everybody else. It was out of necessity, but I knew better.
So you've got the whole drug problem going on in the area, but you're not a part of it, although you hustle a little bit, you said. But right out of high school, Rick gets signed with Def Jam. I think he's like the third artist signed to the Def Jam label.
No. We get out of high school 83. That fall of 83, me and Rick is supposed to go to college together. Bronx Community College. He lives in Bronx. I live in Brooklyn. But I was taking a trek up to Bronx. We were supposed to go to college. He never showed. So the whole semester goes by. Now it's 1984. And I hear this cassette tape. And it's a Lottie-Dottie. And I'm like, I know that rap. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Rick got a cassette tape out because getting a record deal still wasn't a thing now. You still had to go through people performing, having a cassette out. And you can't just put out music like you do right now. You had to go through something. You had to go and perform at talent. You had to battle MCs. People had to know your name before you can get a record deal. Then, if you're lucky, you can get a cassette tape out and people will like your cassette tape. Then somebody from a record label may give you an opportunity. So that's what happened with somehow Rick is on the rap scene and he's performing and he's battling, and he runs into Dougie Fresh. And one night they connect, and they do this incredible song called Lottie Dottie, and somebody records it on cassette tape. Next thing you know, the cassette tape starts moving around the city. Everybody's playing it. Even the DJs are trying to figure out how they can get it played on their stations. Not a lot of DJs, of course, except for late night, but they're trying to figure out how they can get it played. I'm like, that's incredible. My boy calls me. His name is Sam Jacobs Jr., who would later become MC Holiday. He's like, yo, Dane, you should make a record. Heard Rick? I'm like, nah, that's not me. That's Rick. Let him do his thing, you know. Then the show comes out as a record with Lottie Dottie as the B-side. Now it's actual vinyl, and that's 84-ish.
Okay.
End of 84, beginning 85. And that's when the actual song comes out. And I hear that, and it's everywhere. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And so Rick brings Doug to my crib, and they in the limo in the projects. I come out, and I meet Dougie Fresh, and we go and hang out. And we drinking Black Dungeons. I put them on the Black Dungeons. It's Old English with Guinness Stout poured in it. So we drinking Black Dungeons, beer, and we kicking it. After that night, my boy calls me again, MC Holiday. I said, I'm ready. Let's go. And I come up with Nightmares. And that's how I get into the game. Because I'm saying to myself, I can do this. If he did it, I can do it. And that was my way to get into hip-hop. Like, okay, let's go make a record now. So let me give you this other story. I'm a segue for your next question, all right? Because the way I came up with Nightmares is my favorite group. And when I worked at McDonald's, because I worked at McDonald's 82, 83. So after school, I used to have to leave right after school and make my way to work. After I got at school, I used to work all day and unload the truck. Every morning, WBLS and 98.7 KISS, they play Houdini, all right? Their Escape album.
Mm-hmm.
Freaks Come Out at Night, Friends, or one of them joints. Houdini becomes my favorite group of all time. Bigger than Run DMC to me. Run DMC is incredible. Don't get me wrong. But Houdini is my favorite group of all time. My favorite rap group of all time. I like the way they look. I like the way they flow. I want to be Houdini. So I bought the album, and I'm listening to Haunted House of Rock. So when it comes time for me to make my first record, I've got this first rhyme. I had a blind date with this girl named Anita to see if it's a place. So I got that rhyme. I know that rhyme backwards and forwards. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I said, I want to be like Houdini. So I said, how can I be like Houdini? I said, okay, Haunted House of Rock. I like that song. I'm going to write Haunted House of Rock, but it's not going to be Haunted House of Rock, but it's going to be something scary, but it's kind of funny, but it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is that? And I was like, Nightmares. Yeah, Nightmares. That's what I'm going to do. And I just started humming to myself. And I'm doing this for days until I get the whole hook together, and I got it. And then that's when I start putting the rhymes together. So I had a blind date with a girl named Anita the Bee. So then I wrote Bright One Morning. I was late for class. Had a fresh pair of frames with Gucci on the glass. So I had that rhyme as well. So now I got these two separate rhymes. I got this hook, and I said, oh, that's what I'm going to do. Just like they did in the Haunted House of Rock. They didn't actually tell a story. They just were rapping, but him and Jalil was talking. Jalil like, yo, which way you going to run? And X said, why? He said, because I don't want to run over you. You know what I mean? I thought that was hilarious. So I'm saying, what can I do to put a story? And I said, it's Nightmares. What would you do if you had nightmares? You go to see a psychiatrist. What was the psychiatrist's name? Oh, what's another word for sleep? Slumber. Dr. Slumber. That's going to be my doctor. I'm going to go see this doctor. I'm not going to rap. I'm going to talk that part out. I'm going to go see the doctor. And when I walk in there, the receptionist is going to know who I am because I'm big. I'm bigger than everybody in hip hop, even though nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
But that's my thing. My thing is people know me before they know me. So I'm going to walk into this office and she's going to lose her mind and say, it's him. It's the Dane. It's the Dane. And that was my whole idea for Nightmares, how it came up and how I brought it to life. And look, let me segue for that because I'm not going to talk too much about the making of any more songs because I'm writing a book called The Making of the Dane with Fame album.
Okay.
All right. And Herbie Lovebug, as well as DJ Clark Kent. So look for that. The Making of the Dane with Fame album, the first gold-selling hip-hop artist from Brooklyn.
Yeah, and you know, when that album comes out, the landscape of rap media is about to have a huge shift because it takes rap from the streets to the suburbs almost, because in 1987, Yo MTV Raps comes out. right around the same time as your album does. And does that have a major impact on the success of your album? Just your timing?
No, it didn't even affect me, tell you the truth, because I never got on your MTV Raps. I had a video, Nightmares, that never got played anywhere.
That didn't get played on Yo MTV Raps at all?
Not really.
Huh.
It might have played once, but Video Music Box and the jukebox, if you remember the jukebox, where you had to pay for spins or pay to see it on your TV or whatever, those were the places that was showing it in hot tracks and stuff like that. But when Yo MTV Raps came, it seemed like I had missed that curve for some reason. I never really got on it. I never really got the energy from the Yo MTV Raps as many other artists that came in after me did, you know?
Yeah.
For some reason, you know, everything that I was able to accomplish with my first album, since they didn't really have videos at the time, I had a video for Nightmares, which cost $2,000, but they had nowhere to play it, like I said. And then, even though the landscape was changing fast, by the time we got to the next phase of whatever was happening, 1987, 88, I had This Be the Death Beat video. And Yo MTV Raps played it a little bit, but not really. But I didn't get a video for Cinderella, my biggest song. Now, that's the one they probably would have played.
Yep.
But I never got a video for that song. So a lot of the catalyst for me becoming gold and being gold was just basically on the music, not the video of the music, just the music itself. And not even people seeing who I was, because most people didn't even know who I was, because if you ever saw my album cover, it's these little, tiny little Danas on it. So you can't see me really.
So building yourself, if Yo MTV Raps isn't really helping that much, is there a lot of touring going on? Are you playing in front of big audiences all over the country at that point, or is rap still not big enough to do that?
So yeah, that's where I got my record sales from. So I'm on the road with LL Cool J on the radio album, the radio tour, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's amazing.
But my biggest tour was the Wipeout tour with the Fat Boys. So I'm on tour with Salt and Pepper, Heavy D and the Boys, God Bless Heavy D, with UTFO, myself, 4x4, and of course the Fat Boys are the headliners. And, you know, it starts off slow and it picks up with the momentum that I had never imagined. And I get to a point where I'm selling 40, 50,000 records a week for Profile Records. You know what I mean? And this goes on for about 2 to 3 months. I'm selling 40 to 50,000 records. So it's really just the tours. But hip hop has always been like that from day one. It's changed now, of course, but it was about being in front of the audience. You go out, you perform, people buy your cassette or they buy your record. That's how it goes. They like your performance. Immediately after, they go buy your record. Or if they know you coming to town, they go buy your record so they can have it. So by the time they see you perform, they know the words. So it wasn't really video driven. It was in-person, performance-driven record sales most of the time back in the days.
You're selling a ton of records, like you said. Are you starting to make money at this point, or are you, like all the other artists, screwed by signing a bad contract? How does that work out with you?
Yeah, so I'm making a lot of money from touring. I don't know nothing about the record contract except for I signed.
Right.
I'll be honest, you know. I didn't know the financial structure of records and none of that stuff. My producer, MC Holiday, his father was a jazz player, so he was older. He was a father figure. He said he knew the music business or whatever. He didn't.
Right.
I signed a contract with them where I would get 20 points or 20% of record sales. They signed a record deal with Profile Records where I got 10 points.
Oh.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it was already backwards from the start. So there was no real money from record sales. All the money that I saw initially came from touring, shows, merchandise, if there was any. Later on, as my record went gold, I did receive a check from Profile Records, that totaled about $99,000. And that was the one and only check that was ever given to me for selling gold.
That is crazy, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Did you make any cool purchases back then? I mean, every rapper back then seemed to have at least an inch-thick gold rope. Did you have one of those?
Yeah, I mean, my thing was clothes, so I had all the valleys, every color. You know what I mean? All the wallabies. I had clothes. I was a clothes person. I was just talking to somebody else about, because I keep forgetting this all the time. They said, what you spend your money on? I said, nothing. I just spend it on clothes and partying. But what I actually spent it on was a clothing shop. Me and Play from Kid and Play we opened Foreplay clothing shop, and I invested over $150,000, $200,000 in this place. I think he put even more than that, double the amount that I put in. Together, we lost $250,000 in this business that we created. You know what I mean? So that was my big purchase.
Well, you love fashion, so at least you're in fashion burning that money.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, I wish it would have came out the other way. Yeah.
So that album comes out, it goes gold, and it seems like when people are talking about you and everybody knows your music, that you want to strike again fast while the iron's hot and you want to put out another album. But for you, I don't think you put out another album till the next decade, like 1990 or 1991. Why the big delay between Dane with Fame and your next album?
Yeah, because I started learning about the music business.
Jaded with it?
Yeah, I found out I was getting jerked and that I had sold $10 million worth of records and I got $100,000.
Yeah, it sucks.
And I'm like, why am I getting $100,000 and y'all making $10 million? But the biggest part of that wasn't even the money. It was the making of the next album. When it came time to make the next album, I found out I had no creative control. Mind you, Profile Records did nothing for the first album. They did not edit, touch, ask me to change, do anything to the album. They didn't have no input. I did the album, I turned it in. Now, the second album, they want to tell me how it should look, what it should sound like, who should produce it, and everything else. And everything went bad from there.
So you're just getting screwed left and right from the record company.
Yeah, all of a sudden, they're hip-hoppers. They're rappers. They know what's best for the artist. Mind you, I came to them as who I was. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to develop me. They didn't have to teach me how to rap, how to be an artist. They didn't have to do none of that. The best they would probably had to do with me was interviewing. But that wasn't even a hard thing for me because I was a talker. So that wasn't even a problem. But I get to my second album now and they want to put their, I don't mean this to use this, but their foot's on my neck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the only way I can say it. They didn't want me to do anything that was me. And I wasn't making any money now. No money was coming in. There was no shows. There was nothing going on. They had me in a position. So I kind of started slowly just giving in to this, giving into that, giving into that, whatever. You know, it's been 2 years now. Let me get another record out, whatever it is. My fans will love it anyway because I'm Dane, and that was the arrogant way to think about it, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. And then you have one more album that comes out in this era of your life, Rolling with Dane. It's an interesting time. Rap has changed at that point. It's like you're the last generation of great storytellers, but there's another generation coming in. The Biggies and Tupacs are coming in, and they've changed the game. And is it almost risking your credibility to put another album out in like 1995?
You know, actually, when I did my album in 1991, I hated that album because I didn't feel like I was in my groove. Because music is about inspiration. And I wasn't really inspired to do the album, even though I did it. And it was some good songs on there, and they could have been better. But I didn't really love that album, or like it for that matter. But when I got to my 95 album, I had went through a lot by the time I got there. And when I got there to that album, I felt like I was in my pocket. You know what I mean? Even though the music had changed a lot, I still felt like I was back to doing me. Let me put it that way. And even though the landscape was changed, I felt like there was an opportunity for me. But evidently, it wasn't really. It wasn't bad for me then because I felt like the songs I was making was more on par than my album before. The Dane Forever album is really when things started changing in the 90s, you know, because that's when the Redmans and the EPMDs were really coming up. And it was the Lords and the Undergrounds, that more rugged, raw underground thing was really coming into play. And the pop sound, as they would call it for hip hop, for the Salt and Peppers and the Kid and Plays, it was there, but it was changing fast. So by the time I got to my 95 album, it had changed all the way. It was just straight gangster, gangster rap, really. If you wasn't doing hardcore gangster rap, you weren't really paid attention to unless you had the machine behind you, pushing you, you know. And I had a great machine behind me, tell you the truth, with Lifestyle and Maverick Records, but I just couldn't find my groove in 95 with the songs that I released. So even though it wasn't a flop of an album. It wasn't a great album either, record sales wise. I liked the songs on there. I thought Battle Cat did an incredible job. We had an incredible chemistry, and we made a good project. I thought it was a very good project.
Okay. And we've been going for a while now, and I know that I don't have much more time to talk about your book, your radio show, recording with your kid. There's so much stuff that you've done with your career, but I usually end the show with something that I call inappropriate questions.
Okay.
And I sometimes get someone that you know, but I don't know anybody that you know, so I couldn't really do that. So I'm just going to ask you 3 random questions. I'm going to be gentle with you because we don't know each other, and I don't want to piss you off at all. But
okay.
My first inappropriate question or random question would be, I believe you were working at the World Trade Center on 9/11. What was that experience like?
So, yes, I wasn't working there. I was working as a communications technician for WorldCom. I don't know if anybody remember MCR WorldCom.
Yeah.
But they've since did some default for American Greed or something like that. But anyway, I was working down there, and it was 2011. And the beginning of 2011, I was working as a technician. I was doing it for 2.5, 3 years. And I decided that I was tired of it and I needed to get back into hip hop. I was like, you know what? I need to go back and do what I love and make music and go perform. So it's 2000, about to go into 2001, and I quit the job. And I used to work down in the World Trade Center area. So I think it was Clark Kent. I'm not really sure. But somebody knew that I worked down in the World Trade Center. So when it happened, somebody just said that, yo, I think Dana was down there and, I think he got caught up in the World Trade Center. And the rumor just went crazy that I was in 9/11. So now I got Dean Meminger and all these Rolling Stones and all these newspapers calling me on my cell phone and like, we're looking for Dana. Dane, they said he was deceased in the World Trade Center. I said, no, this is Dana. They said, oh, so you're alive? I said, yep, click. But the rumor kind of went crazy, though, because at the time, a rumor could go real crazy because it's not like now where you can find out things at the drop of a dime. It takes a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, they thought I was in World Trade Center. Fortunately, I wasn't.
Yeah. All right, my second inappropriate question will be, there was a time when rap videos seemed to exploit women left and right. It was so bad looking back on it, but I'm sure you had to see your fair share of wild stuff, whether it be in video shoots or parties. What was the craziest, most rap situation you ever found yourself in?
Wow. I don't even know, man. It's so many, though. What was the craziest? Yeah. You know what, man? I think one of the craziest things that we did is we was in Rochester, New York, and it was all of us. See, this type of stuff to get you in trouble, though. You know what I mean?
We don't have to say it then. We don't have to say it.
No. I'm saying this is the type of stuff that would get you in trouble, but it wasn't like we did anything wrong. It just wasn't right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just this girl that we had, and she was a groupie for all intents and purposes. And she wanted to sleep with all of the band group. You know what I mean? Everybody from each group, like all of us. And we basically, about 6 or 7 of us slept with this one. And she was fine, too. I couldn't believe it. But, yeah. I mean, that's 1,000 of them. I don't even know. I don't know.
All the things that happen to famous people.
Yes. Exactly.
And I guess my final inappropriate question will be, you rap a lot in an English accent. You went to high school with Slick Rick, and I believe that's some of the influence. But is it weird when people expect you to sound English and you just talk like Dane, where people don't know you and expect you to be an English dude?
The funny thing about that is like this. You never know how people perceive you because people perceive things differently, right? So with Rick, he's got a British accent by way of West Indian, like a West Indian, Jamaican, London accent. So there was 2 other guys who had West Indian backgrounds, Lance Brown or Mega the Heartbreaker. We all kind of rap that same way, all of us. That was our tone, in school. Not from Rick, not from Lance, not from Omega. I don't know where it came from. It was the sound that we had. Maybe it was Rick. Maybe it was Lance. I'm not really sure. But that was the sound we had. So moving forward, when people hear my voice, it's crazy. Some people say, wow, dang, you sound just like the record. Some people say, where's the accent? It depends. Me, I know what it was. I know it was something that I used to express my art, Gimmick, Okay, could be. But I say this. The Beatles are from London, England. When they talk, they sound English. London English, British accent. When they sing, they sound American to
Yep.
me. I saw it like that. So I never worried about it. That was my thing, you know? When they talk, they sound like they British, but when they sing, they sound American. So why can't I do the opposite?
Well, there you have it. Dane is the Beatles of rap.
There you go.
Well,
I'll take it. I'll take it.
well, Dana, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's Father's Day and you got some plans going on, but I will say as a 13-year-old kid, I paid for your album, or not your album, your tape, because I listened to it on a Walkman. I probably bought it more than once, and I was one of those kids in the suburbs that gave money to the record company that you never got to see, unfortunately. But I thank you for all the memories you helped create for me, the soundtrack to my life.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, man. I'm sorry it took so long to get on here with you, man. I've been contemplating doing interviews and trying to make it work for myself and finding the balance to do it. So this was a great interview, man, and thank you, man. Thank you for your time.
So that was time with Dane, and I was such a big fan when I was like 12 to 18. Old school rap and metal was what I grew up on, and Dane, especially Cinderfella Dane, was in heavy rotation. And while I had an easy upbringing listening to Dane, he sure didn't. I'm sure he saw and had to deal with a lot of shit that me and most people that listen to this podcast have never even thought of. I mean, the dude grew up in a project. It's a lot harder to work yourself out of the projects compared to the cul-de-sacs, and that's exactly what Dane did. That's the show for this week. I want to thank you for listening. I want to ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on. If you're on an iPhone, here's what you need to do. Click the podcast icon, search for the Powell Movement, click my logo, scroll down, click 5 stars, and you're done. It's that easy. It's greatly appreciated and really does help the show grow. Finally, I want to thank 10 Barrel and Stanley for supporting the show. Have a great week, everyone.